back and bigger than ever. It's the Unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Now, here's the entire Sooner Scoop crew. Carey, Josh, Eddie, and Bob.
This is exactly what you all wanted, I'm sure. Welcome back, Unofficial 40. Eddie Radosevich here in... I'm the captain now. I have killed Carey. I'm taking over. We're going to make a lot of changes. No, Carey is out sickly this evening or afternoon or whatever we want to call it. And I'm in the captain seat. So anything that goes wrong today will definitely be not my fault, but it will definitely be Carey's fault for not being able to do this. And he's going to hear all of this. And yeah, that's where we're at. So good afternoon, gentlemen. How are we?
I'm fantastic. I'm pretty happy. Carey's not here. I don't want to get sick, and I think he got it from you, actually, Eddie.
That's actually the funny part, right?
That's not true to a certain extent. I have been sick, and I was able to work through it. But we also got to remember that my immune system and overall competency of life is probably stronger than everybody else's.
That's true.
So I'm not going to take full responsibility. I've fought off COVID multiple times, whether it be real or not. So yeah, that's where we're at today.
You're comparing yourself to Carey. I mean, we're talking about one of the lesser immune systems in the known world.
I can't confirm that he is sick. Like he came up here earlier and sounded like shit. So we basically
executive decision
I
here.
felt bad. I felt bad that he was even up here. I was like, man, if you need me to put in the captain seat, I usually do nothing during this program. So I could drive this bus. I can do this.
It's not at all that I think Carey is a faker. I think Carey just has a horrible immune system. That dude, I swear to God, you can set your clock by it. At least once every 3 weeks, he will have some sort of virus or junk.
Well, there's stuff just going around too. I feel like a bunch of my buddies have been sick here lately. I think that a lot of people probably have COVID again, but nobody wants to go get it checked. That's kind of where I was, and I wasn't going to do anything until I lost taste or smell or maybe got a fever. So call it a cold, call it COVID, call it whatever. It's kind of going around.
Well, you hate to get into this, very poly-charged argument, but let's be real. COVID has basically become the flu in the way people view it. They're like, I don't want to get checked for it because I know all the shit I got to go through. I'm not dealing with it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not shutting down my life for a couple days, even though I maybe would probably prefer it to be so.
Yeah, but the nice part is for all the algorithms, we're going to get a lot of hits because we've said COVID at least 7 times already. So this is going to be a big pod for us in the health industry.
Good. And that's why we are strong advocates of the healthcare system and everything that comes with it, including the use of masking purposes, particularly the burning of masks. So that's where we're at today. We're just going to see how many times we can get canceled throughout the hour and a half here.
How many awkward pauses would you put the over-under at for this sucker?
Probably the amount of car crashes that Sarah Stitt has had. So that's like 3. So we'll go 3.5. How about that?
Every podcast I've been on so far on here, you've said that.
Well, she's a friend of the program, and I think that's one of the things that we like to point out.
There also will be, I'm guessing, no bleeping of Eddie in this episode either.
I'm going to mind my manners as long as, I don't know, maybe when we get to the basketball segment. There's been a lot going on, though, here in Norman. Obviously, we got spring football, the Enjoy Vision look-around spring ball getting underway last week. We've been out to practice now twice. Last week on, what was that, the first day of practice?
Tuesday.
On Tuesday,
Yep.
And then we were back out there on Monday, guys. I guess let's just start here. Obviously, there's a lot of physically, everybody looks pretty damn good. I would say that Schmitty's kind of done his thing here over the last couple months since the end of the off season.
Yeah, I think too. It's nice we got to talk to quite a few guys after practice the other day. Robert Spears Jennings looked really good. Spoke a lot about different things and how he's feeling at safety. I thought Isaiah Coe looked really good. Reggie Grimes. So yeah, it's been super eventful and got to talk to a handful of players. Austin Stogner, I haven't seen him in a long time, so to see him out there, it's definitely it's nice to be able to go out there for 45 minutes and get to see a good chunk of practice, especially they're doing the W drill. I know we'll get into a little bit that later, but yeah, it's been good, and we've gotten to see quite a few guys.
And it's been nice to see the guys who are returning, but now are going to be pushed by the newcomers. You could hear it. You could hear like in Reggie Grimes' voice. It's like, maybe not necessarily a wake-up call, but there's a sense of urgency. They're kind of letting me know what I did in 2022 wasn't enough. So what do I got to do to get better? Saw it a lot watching practice with Key Lawrence, him internally motivating himself and psyching himself up. Is like, I've got to win every single rep. Come on, Key, you got to do this. It's like, you brought Reggie Pearson in. It's like, those guys are being told, flat out, it wasn't what we needed in 2022, but it's up to you to be who we're going to need in 2023.
It's been, I always get a kick out of like everything that goes on with spring too, because everybody wants to know obviously about the quarterback position and how Jackson Arnold looks. I know that like we were laughing after we left practice on Monday, somebody on the radio, like just being so enamored with how Jackson Arnold threw the ball because it was the first time he had seen him, which I get to a certain extent, but there is no like quote unquote controversy at that position right now. I mean, it's pretty obvious that is Dylan Gabriel's job. Not only is it his job, but this is kind of his team.
Yeah, I think the only controversy possibility would be is if when spring completes, does Jeff Lebby name Jackson Arnold as the backup, and then would Davis Bevel hit the portal? That might be like your
I was thinking about that.
Your only issue
Bevel
that you could see,
or General Booty maybe going to the portal during the spring. I can't imagine that they start August camp with both of them, but maybe so. I don't know.
That room seems tight. I don't know. I follow all those guys on social media, and they seem pretty close. So I wonder.
Yeah,
if maybe
DG's kind of wrapped Bevel within like his dime time product and all the stuff that they did on the social media push with that release.
So I wonder if they stick around, and if I wouldn't be shocked too if Lebby just says, "Oh no, it's going to carry into the fall," so that Davis Bevel sticks around, because they need at least 3 of those guys. Now General Booty might not stick around, but. I think it is funny though, because some people are like, "Oh, Jackson Arnold looks incredible out there. He's throwing the ball like 5 yards to like no one." And so and it's the same with a lot of these guys. I mean, everybody looks great in spring. I don't know if there's anybody out there that I'm like, man, he doesn't look good. So I think it's really hard and we're also out there too when they're doing drills that they're not really, going through. Actual plays.
Yeah, we're not even really getting a chance to evaluate what they're doing.
Right. Now, I will say the W drill, I will say Billy Bowman and Drake Stoops, that clip Eddie put out, that was awesome. I watched Danny Stutzman beat Austin Stogner a couple times on that drill. Kanik looked really good. Kobe McKenzie might actually be the best looking guy out there. Him and PJ Adebawore.
Yeah, it feels like he's lost a little bit of that baby fat. I don't know if that's the right wording for it, but he definitely has started to mature a little bit. I don't know how many of the pictures and stuff and video that you've been able to see, Josh. It seems like there is a little bit of a coming of age for a bunch of guys that, I think it's only natural to think that they're going to make a step here during their second spring on campus.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and this is that first group. And Eddie, I think you're right to call it baby fat, because I don't know what else you would call it, because Kobe was just always a fit kid. Like, I remember seeing him at the end of his junior year at Lubbock Cooper when they got bounced in the state semifinals, and he was a guy that was just, you were like, holy crap. I mean, this guy might grow into defensive end because he's so big. But to see, and I know that was something that even before he had signed and was all in with Oklahoma, there was that conversation of like, you're going to have to change your body a little bit. You're going to have to do some different things. And he bought into that, like fully, like just, okay, this is what I've got to do. This is where I've got to be. I've got to be more athletic, more fluid, less of just a, tackle to tackle kind of linebacker. So I do. And I think you're going to see a lot of those guys in that class. make a jump. I think one of the guys that, and I do it myself, that I think could be really key for this year is a guy like Gavin Freeman that wasn't even part of that class, but is now going into his second year, his first spring on campus, doing all of those things. Like I think, you look at that receiver room, they need a playmaker. They need somebody that can do some of that stuff. And I know people will kind of, just because he was a walk-on, people kind of write Gavin Freeman off of that role, but the limited touches he had last year, that guy made plays. Like there's just no other way to say it.
We'll get to the wide receiver stuff here in a second. George, you wrote about Emmett Jones today, the new wide receivers coach down in Norman. Met him last week, was that? Last Thursday. Mm-hmm. Pretty impressive first appearance. I think that it's pretty obvious why there's a lot of people that, obviously have spoken very highly of Oklahoma's new hire at the wide receiver position.
Yeah, and I haven't talked to all the assistant coaches yet. I'm still trying to get to know most of them. But in terms of interviews, I would assume he's towards the top. I mean, the guy's very personable. Took some extra time to talk to me off to the side, and that's kind of what led to this story that I ended up writing. But you also just talk to people that know him, and Josh knows this. We were talking about this a little bit before we started recording, but he knows everybody in the Dallas area and even the Houston area. I mean, the state of Texas is somewhere that he's really well known, and that's going to show up in recruiting. And it was interesting because I called almost a dozen people, whether it was players or coaches, and not anybody had a bad word to say about this guy. So he's super impressive, and he's got his hands full with that group, because I think that, at least for me, that's my biggest concern for this team going into next year is who are going to be those receivers that step up, because I think we all know that Farouk can maybe be that guy. We want to see it, on a consistent basis. But who's going to be that next guy? We know what you're going to get from Drake Stoops, but can a DJ Graham step up? I mean, that's another guy that I want to write about. We talked to him the other day. He sounds pretty confident in himself that he can be a good player at receiver. But let's see it happen, this spring and next fall. And then, like Josh said, Gavin Freeman, and then you've got the young guys, Jaden Gibson, Nick Anderson, LV Bunkley Shelton, JJ Hester. So there's kind of a hodgepodge of guys, and you just need to see 1, 2, 3 of those guys step up. So it's an interesting room, and it seems like Emmett Jones, though, is off to a hot start.
There's so many of those guys at the wide receiver positions. Like, I think he has talent enough that he can help contribute, but I don't know if he is going to contribute.
But he hasn't done it yet. Right. There's nothing to suggest. Yes.
Which, I think that, and we'll get to, more of kind of in depth on your story here in a second, George, just as far as like, the first thing that always has come up with Emmett Jones, and Josh, I know that you've heard about this as well, is just development. The word development comes up time and time again when you're talking about, kind of what he needs to do while in Norman. First awkward pause of the day. That's okay.
No, I wasn't sure if that was aimed for George or me, but yeah.
Well, I was shooting it at both of you guys, whoever.
Sure. My bad.
No. We'll continue on though. We'll come back to Emmett Jones in the wide receiver position. See how this bitch moves now? We continue on. There is no looking back. As far as softball goes, obviously they played really well over the weekend up in Ames. Big one coming up this weekend with the Friday night showdown in Oklahoma City at Hall of Fame Stadium, and then the two down in Norman with Texas, a little bit of a rematch from last year's national title series.
Yeah, and both teams looked really good to begin conference play. They both got the sweep, so it's number 1 versus number 9. Of course, the goal of Friday night is to have the largest attendance ever for a regular season softball game. They're bringing in all the bleachers to try to make it.
Are they going to be in the outfield too?
I think they are. I mean,
really?
I would think that'd be the only way you could try to set that record.
I guess just because they don't have a whole lot of quote unquote regular season games there, maybe? I don't know.
And so they're gonna, they're talking about they're gonna stripe the stadium. I'm sure OU fans are well aware of what that means from all times that football has done it, and they've had a couple of weekends where on Friday they weren't sharp. And then Saturday and Sunday, they turned it on. And that happened again this last weekend in Ames. It was 3-0 on Friday. Alex Storako was brilliant, so they didn't need much more than that. But they're going to need to bring it all 3 games against the Horns. And that's sort of a question I have for Patty as I'm going to getting ready to talk to her here in a couple hours. Just this type of focus or preparation Like, what sort of changes maybe are they trying to do to make sure that they're ready to go Friday? Because there's no doubt they've been ready to go Saturday and Sunday. They've looked tremendous whenever they believe they haven't played their best. But can they play their best right from the jump?
Should be a lot of fun this weekend. As far as basketball goes, real quick, not a whole lot of portal news out there. It's just kind of a wait-and-see mode. We'll get to basketball here in a little bit.
Yeah, it really is. Just, guys have gone into the portal. Now it's slowing down. Now it's like, start setting up your visits. No more excuses.
Baseball's been embarrassing this past week. Losers of 5 in a row. They blew a 3-run lead twice on Tuesday night up in Wichita. Lost to Wichita State for the second time this season after getting swept in between by Pete Hughes' Kansas State team. They can't keep leads. They get down early in games, can't score runs, and I think that about covers it.
Have we officially reached...
They do a lot of... they do everything that bad baseball teams do.
Are we past the point of saying, oh, this was going to be a process anyway?
No, I mean, I think that a lot of it is. It's just tough to stomach it because they were so good at the end of last season. They got hit a little bit by the draft bug, which, obviously, I think if you had one of two options, do you want a bunch of guys to get drafted or do you want nobody to get drafted? You're going to take the guys that do get drafted. So they are getting talent to campus. Now it's kind of about recultivating that pitching staff, and they haven't been able to find any answers. On the back end right now, Aaron Weber, he was really good leading up into last week,
right?
And then he gives up the 2-run lead against Dallas Baptist a week ago tonight. So it's been trying times. It seems like it's one thing or another. They've had injuries. You start getting Wallace Clark back into the lineup every day, and then all of a sudden he has 2 errors last night that lead to 3 or 4 runs. 6 of the 8 Wichita State runs were unearned on Tuesday night. So they pretty much check every box of what you can't do in the game of baseball, and usually it leads you to looking bad and getting beat. So good news is, good news and bad news. The good news is they get right back after it on Thursday night. The bad news is it's a top 10 team, number 7 Stanford coming to town for a 4-game series. So
how did they make that happen?
Accepted. How did they schedule them?
Yes.
I think I don't know. Ryan Gaines just worked his magic and got him coming to town. I really don't know. I don't know what Stanford's schedule looks like. Maybe they had a series that opened up and they were able to talk their way into it. I really don't know. But I assure you that it's probably not the boys of Palo Alto wanting to come see Cleveland County in late March. Maybe the weather will help them out a little bit, although it's supposed to be pretty nice. George, have I ever told you that I was blind once?
Yes. I remember you being blind. The last time I was
here. Really blind, though. Like, not fake blind like Helen Keller. I was really blind.
Yes. Yeah, no, I remember you would always talk about how you couldn't see anything during the games.
And then I went to Enjoy Vision, which is a laser vision center in Oklahoma City. And it's, in my opinion, the best one. They use a combination of mind-blowing technology, experienced eyeball surgeons, and exceptional patient care, which was life-changing for me because I went in there one day blind as a bat, and then I left. And after about a 12-ish hour period, and really the laser portion of the surgery only took about 15 minutes. But then after rest and recovery, I could see everything. I could see through walls. And now I have the best vision, maybe on Campus Corner. A special thank you to Enjoy Vision because of that, and because of our partnership, and because they love the U40 listener. You can use Enjoy Vision, and you can go to enjoywithme.com and use the promo code U40, and you can actually start trying to see just as good as me. It probably won't be as good as me, but it will be quite comparable. Do you understand?
Were you scared when you went and did that?
I was a little bit scared, but the fine folks of Enjoy took care of me. They gave me a couple Vicodins, and I was ready to roll. I think they were Percocets, actually. Actually, I think they were just Valiums. Sometimes you get the over-the-counter stuff that, it all mixes well, and it makes you feel good, and it took care of my nerves. And I left Enjoy Vision with basically perfect vision. So I implore everybody or anybody that is looking to get laser surgery to go to Enjoy Vision. That is Enjoy With Me, the letter N, Joy, with me.com, promo code U40. Enjoy Vision. This is where you LASIK. That was pretty good, wasn't it?
That was really
Not
good.
bad.
I think there's going to be a lot of
Great
people
ad.
that are pretty impressed with that. I'm pretty impressed with that. That is one ad read down, a couple more to go. I'm not as confident about the other ones, but we like all of our sponsors equally. Although Enjoy Vision did help me be able to see. What do you guys think? Where do we want to go? The football stuff obviously is the leader right now. Spring ball in the second week right now.
That are future freaks.
The future freak stuff. We'll get to that here in a second. Let's stick with the football stuff, the team stuff. Most importantly, Emmett Jones and kind of our first impressions of him. I thought the line of the night in meeting with him last Thursday was talking about Drake Stoops, and then we go out there on Monday and Drake's mixing it up with Billy Bowman. There's so many of those guys, though. It will be interesting to see how he kind of cultivates that position.
Yeah, and I'm really intrigued. I mentioned it earlier, but I spent some time talking to DJ Graham the other day, and it really feels like he's got a chance. And you guys could probably talk about this better because you guys covered him a little bit in high school, but I didn't realize how prolific of a receiver he was in high school, and that was really his primary position. And he was telling me through the recruiting process that every school that offered him at wide receiver except for Oklahoma was sort of like an athlete, is what he said. They just said, hey, come in and be an athlete. And obviously he ended up moving to corner because he said they needed depth there. And obviously he was able to play pretty quickly. And then the other school was Georgia that offered him at corner, actually, is what he was telling me. I don't know if you guys recall that, but he feels like a guy that he looks the part. You watch his high school film at receiver, and he was a stud. And I just feels like he's a guy that could maybe contribute there. He even told me, too, and I'm going to write about this a little later this week, he's training with Travis Wilson, who is obviously a former Oklahoma wide receiver. I don't know where he's coaching at now, somewhere in, I think, the Texas area.
He is. Yeah.
He's at Frisco Reed.
Yep,
now.
I was like, he's Frisco. Yep.
He's DJ's like personal wide receiver trainer. He's been working with him the last few months. So obviously a good guy to be working with. So I'm really, that's kind of the guy that I've circled is maybe he can be a dude.
And what's funny is he was a guy I circled for the portal. You make that type of move in the middle of the season, and then it's like, you know what? If I want a real fresh start, it's not going to be. I mean,
remember how he walked up the tunnel in Lubbock, and that everybody thought, well, there it is. That's going to be the final kind of sayonara for you.
Yeah, because I mean, you've decided. It wasn't the coaches that moved you. You decided I'm moving to this position because my heart's not in it where I'm at this moment. That sometimes just, okay, well, here's the door, go ahead and we'll try to help you find another spot. But we wanted you here and now you want to go here. That's not going to work for us. But then, you get to January, it's like, okay, he's not hitting the portal. Let's see what he can do. And to your point, George, we were all there at the OU on campus camp where he got the offer. He was at receiver. He
had the one-handed grab.
He was at receiver the entire evening. And then he goes, yeah, Carey Cooks just offered me. I'm like, what? You were at receiver the entire night.
Yeah, he's been awesome. And, at least off the field and talking to the media and things like that. And he had a good run at the cornerback position, but I am slightly intrigued to see what he brings to the wide receiver position that obviously is going to have a lot of spots to fill. I mean, obviously, I say a lot of spots. I know they only played 3 a year ago seemingly, but you have big shoes to fill when you lose somebody like Marvin Mims. I thought the two freshmen looked, I guess, freshmen in terms of they'll be sophomores in a year. Well, I guess one will be a redshirt freshman. I thought Nick Anderson looks really good. Just on the hoof. Who knows what he's going to bring once he gets onto the field, but him and Jaden Gibson both physically look different, obviously, than those other guys out there.
And for me, I try to think back to, obviously, when CeeDee was here, do any guys look like that? Because you would walk out there and you watch CeeDee and you're like, okay, that's
what you want.
Yeah, and the frame of Nick Anderson and Jaden Gibson is there. I think that both those guys have probably put on a little bit of weight from a year ago. What can they do this summer? But both those guys, like you said, Eddie, look like athletes that can contribute. And so that's what's going to be interesting is, and I know the spring game is nothing, but can one of those guys go out there and make a play and you'll make some catches? Because I think every single one of those guys is going to have an opportunity at some point, either it's this spring or early in the next season, to make plays. It's going to be interesting to see, who goes out there first. But and one guy I failed to mention earlier, Andrell Anthony. It seems like he is a guy that's going to get plenty of opportunities. He's also out there returning punts, which I don't know if he did that at Michigan, but I thought it was interesting that he was in that group along with J.J. Hester, Billy Bowman, and Drake Stoops. So, that to me is the most intriguing spot right now this spring is who can solidify themselves as an actual contributor.
Well, unfortunately for Oklahoma, the first things first. You got to be able to force the punter onto the field for the opposition. So maybe it doesn't matter who's going to be returning punts for quite soon. The one thing that I did walk away from on Monday night when we talked to Brandon Hall was the fact that this is a safety position that, obviously has been through it, I guess is that the easiest way to say it? They've been through it over the last couple of years. It is interesting to me, though, that you look over there and, obviously with the addition of Reggie Pearson, the unfortunate situation with, Peyton Bowen, who was out, not at practice. And we've I guess, covered that somewhat on the board. And, obviously
Peyton's
a tragedy that has hit his family. It is a position that I feel like is I don't want to say close because I don't want to give anybody PTSD, but it feels like it's moving in the right direction. When you hear Brandon Hall being able to talk about 5-6 guys at a position that really you only need 2 bodies, it seems like that is moving in a positive direction in which it's not going to be a detriment of the defense. It's not going to be a negative when you look at that just position overall.
And it's 5 or 6 guys that people would agree with. Instead of saying, Really? You're going to tell me that's one of the guys that's going to help? I mean, you can just see the comfort level,
I think Billy Bowman looks great.
Billy Bowman.
Like physically, that guy looks amazing.
Lawrence, Robert Spears-Jennings, you got Pearson. Like, that's 4 right there. Can Peyton Bowen already make that type of leap? But, yeah, I mean, those are guys you feel a heck of a lot more confident than compared to what we've seen in that position where you're trying, to will it to have, this guy, he has to be good for us. Instead, you're like, we know these guys are going to show up.
Well, and it feels like, talking to Robert Spears-Jennings the other day, they also are aware of where they weren't great at last year. I think somebody asked him, where did you guys need to improve the most? And he said, fitting run gaps. And if you go and watch the film from last year, and you guys were obviously there, it was clear that at times the safeties were very bad at coming up and filling the run. And Billy Bowman was really good at it at times. And obviously the biggest thing with Billy, he's got to stay healthy. I mean, because when he's on the field, he's good. He's really good. But if he can stay healthy, he's good at that. But for them to understand, we're not filling gaps very well, I think is a good sign. And then again, physically, they when I was here, it was I think the starting safeties were Delarian Turner-Yell
and Pat Fields.
Yeah. And Robert Spears-Jennings is much bigger than both of those guys. Billy Bowman, maybe not as tall, but physically he looks really good. So even Harmon, I thought looks really good out there. So Reggie Pearson is a physical guy. And then, we haven't seen a ton of Peyton Bowen yet, but I think he's a guy that can push for a spot there once he gets back.
Perhaps more than anything, I think there is just a certain level of comfort within the defense in entering the second season. I think that, how much of that is going to play a part in helping a unit perform better than they did a year ago. I would think it's only natural to feel like they're going to make a step in the right direction. But maybe if anything else, it's just a little bit more confidence within what they're being asked to do and what they're looking at and the, diagnosing of things more quickly so you can get to the spot of where you need to be.
Well, and I thought, and this goes back to my Denver days, but I got to know Turner-Yell pretty well. Mm-hmm. And I remember asking him in the locker room about, playing in Grinch's scheme versus what they're doing with Venables. And he's like, man, what we did with Grinch was the simplest stuff. It was very basic. He's like, we only ran a couple different coverages. He goes, what they're doing with Brent is, he's like, it's confusing. And he's like, it's going to take them time to figure out what they're doing. And I think Turner-Yell's one of the smarter players that I've covered. But so for him to say that, I think that's what that speaks to, Eddie, is you've got guys now kind of understanding what they're asking of them. And I think that, Eddie, I think you might have been the one that asked Robert that the other day about just feeling more comfortable in that safety position, how much they put on those guys back there. But I think as a defense as a whole, one more year in the system, you have so many guys returning that played in it last year, went through the ups and downs of it, I think that it's very clear that they're more comfortable in what they're doing schematically.
Yeah, it's what Reggie Grimes mentioned. The word he said, it's review now. We're not learning it, it's review. And so that's helping all of us, and it's helping us with the newcomers who perhaps, need a little assistance. But instead of we're all, struggling and our heads are spinning, we have the foundation, the guys that are back for the second year, and he thinks it's showing off in a major way throughout the first couple weeks of spring.
How much of that is just an excuse for what happened a year ago, Josh? I mean, do you buy into this idea that just being more comfortable within the defense, and obviously I think adding a number of contributors through the portal and or recruiting is going to help? I guess it maybe kind of all goes hand in hand as they continue to progress into the second season under Brent.
Oh, I don't think there's any question it's real. It's not so much, and because guys, you listen to these guys talk about it, and they all say the same stuff. Like, it's not just like, do I know what I'm doing? It's doing it in real time. Like I'm not having to think about it. You would see guys last year, and George kind of alluded to this, where it's just a step slow. They're a half second behind, and it leaves a gap or it leaves a lane that shouldn't be there. And it's not like the play wasn't called right or that they don't know what they're supposed to do. It's just a hesitancy to do or to react. Instead of, thinking about it, they're just running to the ball, and they know I've got, outside help here, or I've got a force inside. They know where they're supposed to be in relationship to that running lane. So it's little stuff that you would see them miss. And I think Billy Bowman is a really good example, because I think even when he came back after that injury he had against TCU, he didn't look the same to me. Like the run fits, you saw a couple of times. I think it was the Nebraska game where it looked like Nebraska was going to pop a pretty good sized run, and then Billy was right there to sweep it up. Like it was like 10 yards instead of 15, 20, whatever, may happen down the field. And that was big. And then you look at it as the season wore on, and it was just this thing where time and time again, that Baylor game's a perfect example where Squirrel Williams just goes crazy. Like, they didn't have that guy that could limit it. Like, you're going to have to come back. Okay, sure, we gave up the first down, but we're not giving up 4 first downs. And that, to me, that is the biggest part. But I think I say that's the biggest part, and I think I was getting ahead of myself. What I think is the biggest thing is the depth. I think if you can develop that, you can rotate. Like we talked about Kobe McKenzie. If he can give Danny Stutzman or Jaron Kanik or whoever the starting 2 linebackers are, if he can give them 10, 15 snaps a game where he's playing at a pretty good level and let those guys catch their breath, get a little water, whatever it may be, and you don't have your play fall off dramatically, that's going to be huge for this defense, because then Danny Stutzman in the third and fourth quarter is not gassed and almost dead on his feet and trying to play like he did in the first quarter. So I think, to me, that's where it's going to be the biggest deal. But again, for me, it all comes back to the defensive line. Like, what are they going to get out of that group? And I think that will tell you how far this defense can take this level of improvement, I guess.
We haven't spent a whole lot of time with that defensive tackle group, just because it's kind of hard to get over into that area where they are at practice. But I mean, just from like standing there and looking afar, Derek LeBlanc looks incredible.
He really does.
In a uniform. How much can he actually add, or how much can he actually contribute as a freshman? Who knows? I mean, they have a bunch of guys that are coming back, and the defensive end position is going to be certainly interesting as far as the way that's able to be worked out. You would think that Bothroyd is going to be kind of the leader of the pack along Reggie Grimes or Ethan Downs. Trace Ford, obviously, it's going to be interesting just because he's not going to be able to be a full participant in spring. Can he stay healthy through the first part of the camp? Once they reconvene in August, it's at the very least interesting. And then obviously, I think anybody that walks out there sees PJ Adebawore, it's like, yeah, that Oklahoma hasn't had a body like that in a long time.
He's different, man. Like, that kid, like, just running around, you're like, who is that? Like, he just...
I don't know who that is, but I know they need more of them.
Why is it 34?
Right.
And what's crazy is I think he's only...
It's a single digit.
Yeah, he's only 18. It's like, this guy could probably put on more weight if they wanted to, or they could take some... I mean, they could do so many different things with him. But while you guys were talking, about the improving each year under Brent defensively, I was looking up the stats, and I think this is out there somewhere, but his first year at Clemson, they ranked 63rd in total defense, and total defense is obviously not the end-all, be-all defensive stat. His second year, they jumped to 25th, and then his third year, they were first in the country in total defense. So he's shown improvement before, and I would expect him to make that leap. And that's not to say I didn't think the defense was just terrible last year. I thought
that's the thing. I think that was the most frustrating thing at times was like we would come in here after games or we would do the unofficial 40 during the midweek, and it's like they played really well on first and second down. They couldn't get off the field on even 3rd and 13 or 3rd and 18. Like how many freaking opportunities I'm having to censor myself. How many opportunities can you give a really good offense? And Oklahoma kind of found out the hard way a year ago.
And I think they just need more guys that, and this sounds so simple, but they just need more guys to come in and make those big plays, those game-changing plays. It didn't feel like they had those guys last year. You need a Danny Stutzman, interception like you had against Iowa State, right? Like you need more of those type of plays. Can a Deshaun McCulloch be that guy that can kind of be that hybrid rush end and linebacker, safety, whatever the heck they're going to do with him? Can he make some plays? Can some guys on the back end go up and make some interceptions? Can a Bothroyd come around the edge and get more sacks? Like that was one thing last year. I felt like they never really got after the quarterback.
No, not after the non-conference. Non-conference, you thought Reggie Grimes was going to live in the backfield, and then nope.
And again, it's just that's where I think that they've gotten better. Obviously, they're going to feel more comfortable, those guys that are back, but the additions on the defensive side of the ball, you're upgrading from where they were last year. You're getting some guys. Deshaun White was a nice player last year, but you're getting better at that spot. Justin Broyles has been around forever, and I'm not going to bring him up a ton, but you got better at that spot, right? You got better on the edge. You think that you maybe got better at middle linebacker with Kanik and Kobe McKenzie, those guys. So that's where I think that you want to see that, and some of those guys step into those roles.
I think they're going to be a top 10 defense. I don't know about you guys, but no, I'm kidding.
Yeah,
but it is kind of exciting to see. There is a transformation as far as body style that I think anybody that has seen Oklahoma play over the last couple of years, it doesn't take long to look at that and see that happening there. It's just it sucks in a way that you're not going to be able to get answers for goddamn 6 months. Yeah. Like seriously,
that's what I'm saying. Everybody looks good in the spring.
It's a wait and see with a lot of things right now on the defensive side of the football. But there is a core belief that they're going to be able to figure this thing out.
Yeah, and I will say one thing, and Josh kind of hit this earlier, but the defensive line, they really don't have, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but usually Brent's defenses have that big, nose guard in the middle. They really don't have that guy, and I think Jordan Kelly and Isaiah Coe are nice players. And I think that they had nice years last year, and they can be, quality players this year, but they don't have that really, middle guy that can really be a run stopper. Maybe that's what they think Hicks can be. I don't know. We haven't really talked. That's one guy I'm interested. Maybe we can talk to this spring. But because obviously he's a massive human being. Maybe you put him there in the middle, but that is one spot that I will say that they don't really have right now.
And it's so hard to get it in the portal because you're not going to find elite guys at that position because they're going to hit NFL draft or something like that. So you got Devon Sears, you got Jacob Lacey, and we'll just kind of see where things roll from there. I spend a lot of time watching Sears because that's who I think that's who they're grooming to sort of get to that spot. And we'll just see how quickly he takes everything and how fast he can maybe help the defense. One
of the defensive linemen that we have talked about or have talked to after one of the post practices was Isaiah Coe. Josh, what is an Isaiah Coe ceiling, you think?
I will honestly say I think he's one of the more undervalued guys on that defense. I think Isaiah Coe is a good player. Now, he has some physical limitations because he's not the 6'4", 320-pound monster, like George was talking about. That there is a clear ceiling to his ability, but I think when he's on and he's active, he is disruptive. He's good with his hands. He can really get into not so much in the passing lanes, but he can defeat a blocker one-on-one. If he plays a shade and he's over a guy's shoulder, he's really tough to beat because he has a nice first step. He is quick. And I think he is one of those guys that you see a lot strong. You see at the NFL level that are kind of almost specialist interior pass rushers. Like they come in on third down. They're there to provide some rush. They do a nice job creating some push in the middle of that pocket. And I think Coe is one of those kind of guys. Now, obviously, in the situation he's in, he's got to play a lot more than that. He's got to be more than that for Oklahoma. So I think that's going to be really interesting. And something, guys, that as we were sitting here talking about it, and I've kind of been thinking about this kind of along this line lately, is I'm starting to wonder, when we would hear things in the last few years, kind of prior to Venables' arrival, the defensive line really looks like it's coming together. And, you wonder how much, I'm trying to figure out and I'm having trouble putting my whole thought here into words, so I apologize, but there is some line between where the offensive line and defensive line and the way strength training was applied to those two positions, how it impacted their style of play, like how physical they were, how much they could do that. And I think in practice at times it almost allowed some false reality, false narratives to become almost accepted as facts. Like where the defensive line, they're really coming along, they're very physical. Well, was it that, or had the offensive line and defensive line both gotten a little too lean and they weren't quite as big and powerful as you were, the teams we'd seen in the early 2000s, the later 2000s, and all these great groups up front, both offensively and defensively? I think we fooled ourselves at times. And I wonder if now you guys talking about these body types starting to change, if that's what you're starting to see as well, is these guys are maybe not superstar talents, but they are more physically able to deal with the rigors day in and day out of these other teams that, like Iowa State that want to hit you in the mouth over and over again, or Kansas State that is just weight room monsters that are just constant overachievers on their offensive line. Do you start getting some of these defensive linemen that are a little more physically ready to deal with what they've seen?
I wonder what like somebody like a Schmitty would think about if you got him onto Prime Shrimp. All they would have to do is go to primeshrimp.com. You could check out the French Quarter Alfredo shrimp. Maybe if you wanted to go to the Sugar Bowl, possibly lemon cracked pepper shrimp, garlic herb butter shrimp, New Orleans style barbecue shrimp. Which one is a Bequetian family favorite? Which one have you guys tried?
Eddie, it is unbelievably amazing that you have teed me up in this way. I got clearance from Tiffany this week to say that she is a signature addition. That is her. She's like, I really like that. We've had that a couple times the last 2 or 3 weeks, just as like a quick dinner for us. Eddie, you'll empathize with this because I know you know this life. We've got to get kids to a dance class, or we've got to get kids to gymnastics.
That's right.
We got to eat dinner fast, and you know how that is. So we've got to do those kind of things. And we were literally sitting in the kitchen eating it the other night, and she goes, you can say this on the pod because I'm constantly being told things I cannot mention on the pod, but you can tell the world that signature is my style, and that's the one I like. So guys, if the missus just doesn't dig on some of the stuff you like, maybe give this a try. Tiffany is fairly discerning, and she seems to like this one from Prime Shrimp.
All you need to do is go to primeshrimp.com, promo code U40. That is primeshrimp.com, promo code U40, 25% off an entire order of $50 or more. And we thank Prime Shrimp, as always.
That's two down.
Two down. One more to go. We'll fit that in at some point. And if Tiffany wants to come on and share her thoughts on COVID, that is more than acceptable.
Oh God, I would love, like, Tiffany long ago stopped listening to the podcast. The idea of her hearing your thoughts on COVID, I can't even, because
well, they all derive from the same place, and it starts with a Q, and you can find it on Facebook.
I would say Tiffany has many strengths. She is smarter than I am. She is better than me in so many ways. Her sarcasm detection is not one of her stronger talents in this world, and I feel like she would be about 3 sentences deep and screaming at Eddie before she realized Eddie was just like, I'm like, no. But I wouldn't warn her because, I'm a bad husband and would just love to watch her just go nuclear before she can calm down.
Well, I'm sure all of this was in between, all of the coverage that came out from last weekend in Norman with Future Freaks. Obviously, that was a big event. Maybe the most guys at one time that Oklahoma has had in Norman, certainly under the Brent Venables era, right? In just one weekend. But it seemed like a lot of it was a success. Obviously, got a 2024 commitment. Where do you guys want to go with the Future Freaks? And then I thought somewhat of a shock on Saturday evening as George and I are sitting there watching Final Four games. It's like, there's a commitment. It's like, oh, okay. Well,
I was putting Pearl down. Like, what? There's a commitment. All right, let's go ahead and get to it then. Were you surprised it was Newcomb that ends up being the first person?
Yes, I think if that had been if I would have had that choice on my bingo card, my bingo would not have come in that night. It was something I had heard about 24 hours before he was coming in. Hey, keep an eye on this guy. I think Oklahoma's in really good shape here. And I thought, okay, but it didn't sound like, Oklahoma's expecting a commitment. Like that's not what I gathered from it. And then like all of a sudden you start hearing stuff and you're like, oh, okay, this is more real. And then he makes the announcement on Saturday. And I mean, it is, it's so funny because people always ask me, usually in November or December of the prior year, who's going to be the first commitment for 2024? I don't think I've ever gotten that right in the history of the world. Like, I don't think I've ever been accurate on who the first guy was because it's always something like this. Like, you go back to Ronell Lewis years ago, who nobody knew about in Dewar, Oklahoma, playing 8-man football. Like, and then all of a sudden he's the first guy. Like, there's all these things that make sense, and then inevitably it's just some guy, Jeremiah Newcomb from Arizona, whose father played at Nebraska. You would think, like, with all that Matt Rule's got going on and all that they've done, like, it would make all the sense in the world for him to be, like, at the very least going to give Nebraska a long look. But I think Jay Valai just got in there early, did a very good job, and he is – I mean, you watch him on tape. This is a long, athletic guy, exactly the kind of corner that Brent loves, triggers really fast, very aggressive when he comes downhill. And on top of all that, I mean, you watch him, he's returning punts. He's just a good athlete. This is a Rivals 250 corner that OU just got. And guys, to tell you how far it's come in the last 18 months of recruiting, it kind of got treated like, oh yeah, that's great. Like, do you remember what a Rivals 250 defender used to mean? Like, that changed the world for a while there.
No kidding. I didn't even think about it that way. As far as the Future Freak stuff, I mean, there's just so many guys. It's hard to just say that the weekend was a smashing success when, I don't know, does it feel like, would it be inaccurate to say that you expected more to come out of it? Or is kind of this what this is nowadays? It's like guys are going to take visits. Guys are going to go through the process. It's more about, and particularly for this staff, is it more about the relationships that you're building and getting guys to come on campus and getting them to continue to return like a David Snowd or somebody like that, and especially some of these big dogs that are going to be in the 24 class?
Oh, I think it's absolutely – this was about relationships because you look at it, guys, they had, I think, 13 or 14 2024 guys. I'm trying to do the math real quick as I count here. About 13 guys from the 24 class that were on campus. Only like 5 of those guys had offers, and nobody picked up one over the weekend. Because I think there were only 2. There was Jamarian Parker and the Autry kid. I guess now that I say that, Isaiah Autry, is he 24? I'm losing my mind. Yeah. So you had one 24 guy, Isaiah Autry, the cousin of Marcus Dupree, another kid from Mississippi. He picks up an offer. So there wasn't ever going to be a lot of action just because that's not the way Brent recruits. I mean, we've talked about it over and over again. Like, people just have to come to accept the policy. If you are going to be so deliberate about, we don't want you to commit unless you are done with the recruiting process, there's kids that are just not going to commit. I mean, like if you're going to be that sincere about it, there's going to be guys that want to commit. They think they're ready to, but they're not ready to say, I'm not talking to any other schools. I'm not doing anything else. And that's just not the way they're going to handle that. So it changes a lot. So, I think a lot of it is, and one of the things that I don't think people think about, like 25 and 26 guys come on campus. Sure, OU's seen film on a lot of these guys. They maybe even have seen them, bumped into them at a school or something. But when you get all the guys in the same room, you get all the, you get Dalen McCutcheon, Grayson Harris, Jaden Nickens, CJ Simon, Elijah Thomas, LaMason Waller, all those guys on campus at the same time. You get to stand them next to each other. Like, when he's amongst his peers, he's bigger than I thought he was. When he's amongst other guys like him, he's smaller than I thought he was. Like, you can develop those kind of ideas. Like, okay, this is really the guy. This is the guy we want in 2025. This is the guy I want to focus on, because now I've seen him. And while I thought he looked great when he was playing in, nowhere, Texas, now that I see him amongst some other kids, I don't feel quite the same about him. So I think that's one of those things where you get a more clear idea. And that's just one example, but you get to have some clearer thoughts about how you're evaluating these guys and what you want to base, your hierarchy on. Because I know everybody thinks of it like in tiers, but I can guarantee you if I put True Serum in any of those coaching staffs and asked, who's your number one guy? They know who their number one guy is every time.
Josh, I think we go through this every visit weekend, so we're going to go do it again. Who visited over the weekend that now all of a sudden you feel completely different about where OU stands?
I mean, Jeremiah Newcomb doesn't count, right? Like that answer doesn't work.
Yes. There wasn't an easy one when I was like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know that I have one that immediately screams at me. But as I kind of look up and down the list, a guy that I think probably hasn't gotten enough attention just being on campus, and his rating, I think, is kind of impacting the way people look at it. Terrence Edwards, the 2025 corner from Virginia, he's been out twice. Came out in camp. Actually, he didn't camp. He came out for the is that the barbecue? Late July? Yeah. He was there at the barbecue. And was another one, that weekend that eventually produced Colton Vosick and all these other commitments. He loved it and came out again this time and just was like, I can't wait to be back. I love everything about it. Like, it just feels like one of those guys that Brent Venables and that staff, like, quietly, it's kind of like, we were just talking about with Jeremiah Newcomb, nobody's paying attention to it. But I think they're in a really, really good spot for Terrence Edwards. So we'll have to kind of watch where that goes. Maybe, and I know people will be like, oh, that's, the 3-star kid. I would, when Brent Venables and those guys are after a guy this hard, this early, it's probably worth considering maybe his ranking isn't on the nose just yet. And that's no shot at anybody. That's just they see something maybe that others haven't seen yet. Another guy I would say maybe from a little more highly regarded, a name that people are going to get excited about is Douglas Utu, the big offensive lineman from Bishop Gorman. He's always been excited about Oklahoma. I think that offer meant a lot to him, but just talking to him after the weekend, there's no question. Like, he is fully in on Oklahoma. He will come back for another visit. I was asking him something, and I really meant more like, how do you feel about Oklahoma, within your recruitment? And I think he kind of read it as like, are you ready to commit to Oklahoma? And he goes, well, not quite yet, but I need to look at, some other schools first. I'm like, yeah, I get it. You're just finishing your sophomore year of high school. Totally fine. But like, that's kind of where his mind was. Like, you could tell, like, I was really blown away with what I saw. And, I think that was a thing that shocked me. I mean, we can get into this a little bit too if you want, but is how unanimous the reviews were. Like, I mean, everybody to a man was like, holy cow. Like, it was amazing. I can't wait to go back. Like, it was, and I've said this before about Brent Venables' visits, and it may just be they're this good at them, but there is absolutely a feeling of like, did they give you guys scripted lines? You're all talking about very similar things and saying them in similar ways, but I mean, I don't doubt the kid's sincerity at all. It's just amazing how much continuity there is from one conversation to the next.
I would imagine just as I don't know if the right words is like extensive and maybe planned as far as like the way Brent like maps everything out. And, obviously credit goes to J.R. Sandlin and Lee Davis for, kind of what they do in running the show behind the scenes. But I guess it's not that much of a surprise that there is so much that comes out of these types of weekends that you go, yeah, I could see why they presented themselves in a manner, whether it be through the Soul Mission program, things like that people would really kind of gravitate towards.
Oh, yeah. I mean, guys, you've got over 40 2025 guys there. And if you told me 7 or 8 of those guys end up as part of Oklahoma's class, I won't be surprised at all. And a lot of them, they're talking. I mean, I know some people, and I'm not going to ever fault anybody for being cynical because I'll live in that world myself. But like, there was a lot of people that were like, the Soul program, what are we wasting energy on this for? And it resonates with these kids, man. Like, it means a lot to a lot of these guys where they're talking about, having somebody there that's going to be checking on them and making sure they're okay. And, and they understand, like, these kids are more aware than 10 years ago, probably 5 years ago, of how fragile, in a football sense, mental health can be. Like how quickly that stuff can, move and how much it can damage you and your career if you're not paying mind to it. And I think that is something OU's very clear. Like, we're going to look into that. We're going to make sure you're where you need to be, both mentally, physically, and obviously in a lot of these cases spiritually. Brent's obviously very open with his religious beliefs. So I think that is something that I was like, I don't know if this plays, but man, and I'm not saying OU's doing it because it's a recruiting tool, because I think it's something Brent legitimately believes in. But there's no question, from a recruiting perspective, it hits with these kids. It really is a meaningful thing. And I would say, if I've probably talked to 40 visitors from the weekend, and to varying degrees, some very extensively, some just kind of superficially, but I would say half of them at least mentioned the Soul program as one of the things that really stood out to them. And, just talked about being around those guys and that staff and just getting a feeling like this is something I really connect with. And I do want to say, because I thought it was, and maybe it's because I think it was something he told me just a couple days ago. Torrey Blaylock, the Rivals 100 running back from kind of Atascocita, which is like North Houston, was talking, and he brought up something that I think we all know, but I'd never really heard a recruit acknowledge this as an interesting point. And he goes, all those guys played at OU. They're all from OU. Like, it tells me that's got to be a really good place because they all want to come back there and work there and be around the campus. And I was like, huh. Like, and I mean, his dad played in the NFL. Like, he's got kind of a unique perspective. But I was just like, that's not something I hear a lot of kids talk about. And I get where he's coming from. It's a very logical way to look at it. It's just not the kind of thing that these guys bring up. So like I said, I thought there was a lot of similarities, but at the same time, you could tell OU hit the right notes with several guys on a little more unique level.
I think it's just like anything else, though. Like, if you are a part of something and you believe in it, obviously it's going to be an easier, and I don't even know if sell is the right word. It's like, it's going to be easier to impress upon a kid if you're a Curtis Lofton, why you want him to come to Oklahoma and be part of the program, because you've been through it and you're from Kingfisher, or, whoever, and even, I would imagine everybody outside of Ryan Young is connected to the program in some manner, as far as, having played as a former player, obviously, or, being a part of the program.
They better watch out, though, because the WWE's coming after
Caleb Kelly.
I saw that. He's one of like 50 guys that have been invited?
50, yep.
What's that for, Bob?
WrestleMania is this weekend, so if you want to mute me, go ahead and mute me this weekend on Twitter, people. WrestleMania Saturday.
I already have you muted. The next step would be blocked, sir. No, so it's a tryout to try to get onto the Sunday night show?
No, it's a try just to see if this is what you might want to pursue here going forward.
Yeah, this is like the invitation to an invitation. Like,
yes.
That kind of deal.
I got you.
I've never watched WWE.
Guys, I've never watched wrestling in my life. So, like, I live in a lot of the stereotypes. I'll fully own it. if I was going to guess, like, and I mean anywhere from the top, from Brent Venables to the lowliest staffer and all the players and coaches in between, would Caleb Kelly have even ranked in the top, 50% of the possible, Caleb is so nice and soft-spoken and kind and funny, and, he doesn't have any of that, brash, in-your-face thing that I think of. And I'm like, what are they going to do with him? I mean, don't get me wrong, super athletic, good-looking guy. I get all that stuff, and that's fine. But, it's a really weird thing to, how do they build his character?
I need a Ted Roof in the WWE. That'd be awesome.
There you go.
I hate to break up the...
he just goes out and speaks motivationally.
Put on that leather jacket. It's over. Awesome. It's done.
His finishing move is just putting him to sleep, talking.
He's like pinning guys, but tell them what a great job they're doing.
That'd be amazing.
Really.
Ted, I think, Ted gets after it in practice.
No, he does.
Yeah, he does.
He does. I think one of the most fun things, and it's a little bit of his, because you get to see a little bit behind the scenes with Brent, but I love hanging out with that linebacker group at practice.
Yes.
It's fun to watch those guys go through everything.
Oh, man, dude.
Intense.
I added it. I was like, nope, I'm not putting that one on.
What was he doing, dropping F-bombs?
Oh, he was he? Left and right.
Josh, I just had one quick note or one quick question for you about this weekend. You wrote a little bit in Woke about, Emmett Jones is recruiting so many different wide receivers. Which of those guys maybe stand out? It feels like every week you add 3 more to the group. And I also noticed too, just looking at their measurables of these guys, they're all around the same size. It seems like he's kind of got a type here, 6'1", 6'2", 170, 180, somewhere in that range.
And I wonder where that, there's got to be some, because I know in your story, for those that haven't gone and read Georgia's story, it's a really good look at Emmett Jones and where he comes from, and I thought that was a great story. But with Emmett, there's that talk, where he and Lebby have some familiarity with each other, and I thought that was really interesting because that, they both, you look at a lot of the guys that Emmett's had success with, including the Jaron Bradley kid at Tech last year, was kind of an overlooked recruit. He brought him out to Lubbock and obviously had a great year. They both like size. They both like that bigger receiver. And it's interesting to me because you're right. A lot of these guys they're looking at are that 6'1", 6'2". And you look at, some of the Ole Miss and UCF rosters that Jeff had, you're talking 6'3", 6'4", really big guys. And so I think it's kind of interesting to see what they're doing there. But I wonder if there's been some marriage of style there. Obviously it's Lebby's, it's his baby. He kind of makes the call. But, obviously like any good staffer, they're going to work together and kind of come to what they like. I think the undeniable trait that these guys all share, they can all run. There's not a lot of possession receivers I'm seeing. These are Kobe Young, the kid that they brought in from Louisiana. I love that dude on tape. I don't think there's any way in hell they get him away from LSU, but I know they impressed him a lot this weekend, and he and I are supposed to talk here in the next 24 hours or so. But they really are making a run at him. I think it all starts with Bryant Westco. I think that's a huge, probably their number one target. I think in 24/7's updated rankings, he's the number 9 player in the country. They ran him way up after that Under Armour camp that Eddie and I were at, and he was outstanding. The Zion Kearney kid, I've had a chance to see a couple of times live from Fort Bend, Hightower. Is a guy I like a lot. Just one of those guys that Jeremy Payne has kind of been the well-known guy because he's been very productive at running back for Hightower, and he's a very good player, don't get me wrong. They're very opposite, though, where Kearney is 6'2", 200 pounds, and just all the physical stuff you're looking for at wide receiver. He's got all of it. He is just an outstanding talent, but hasn't been very productive because that offense hasn't always been a great vertical passing game. At the same time, Payne's been wildly productive, but he's 5'9", 175 pounds. He's a little undersized. So it's interesting to kind of that back and forth between those two guys and kind of where they are in the recruiting game. But I would say Wesco, Kearney. I really think they like the Xavier Jordan kid, but that guy, 2 days after being at Oklahoma, he was at Ohio State. USC's involved there. I mean, if OU goes and gets him, that's a huge win for Emmett Jones. And then obviously tomorrow they've got the Isaiah McMorris kid coming in from Bellevue West in Omaha. That is you talk about a big play guy. He brings a lot of that tape to the table, and kind of is the opposite of what we're talking about with these guys with this tremendous size. I mean, he's like 6 foot 165. Like, he is a speed, kind of want to get him in space kind of guy, and you need that. I mean, it's something you hear pro scouts talk a lot about is the almost having like a basketball team at wide receiver. You got your centers, your power forwards, your guards, you got your point guard. So it's just going to be a lot of different body types you can throw at them. So really long question is, I think there's a bunch of possibilities, but if you were going to say it, I would think Wesco, Kearney, and probably Jordan and Young would be the 4 that I think are kind of at the top. But at the same time, I want everybody to be very realistic. Jordan is going to be tough because anytime Brian Hartline and Ohio State's involved, that's a fight. And then secondarily is with Young, you just don't go into Louisiana and beat LSU very often.
In terms of guys that made it in just locally, any surprises? Anybody sneak in through the back door into the Switzer Center over the weekend?
Well, as far as a guy that definitely didn't sneak in, but Nate Roberts being able to spend more time. He was supposed to have a baseball tournament.
Sure.
It kind of, I think it ended up getting delayed. There was some reason, so he was like, I'm going to have to leave at like noon. But then it ended up he got to pretty much stay through the whole spiel. And so I think that was big, as Oklahoma kind of continues to work there. To be honest, I was a little surprised that Caden Jones, the Kiwan's son, didn't pick up an offer. I really thought that might happen. I know they don't like to rush to offers, and I'm going to guess he'll show up at camp this summer, and then this whole thing will get remedied. He is a tremendously talented young guy, and it's clear that Oklahoma under Brent Venables is going to focus on landing as much quality in-state talent as they think they can, as the state will bear. So I think that's going to, that will happen in some sort of short order. But it wasn't a huge, weekend for in-state guys. Obviously, Alex Shieldknight, who we saw at that same Under Armour camp, was there. Came away impressed. I mean, he's just such a, kind of middle of the road guy. Like, I feel like Alex Shieldknight could be in a car crash and he'd just be like, well, that was kind of intense, and just walks away. Like, I don't think he just doesn't get wound up about a lot. So he is, but again, continues to build that bond with Miguel Chavis, and I like a lot of the headway they made in 2025. I guess as the last guy I would say, just to kind of keep the in-state theme going, was C.J. Simon, the wide receiver from Moore. It feels like he's one of those guys that we're going to wait, and then I bet he eventually gets that offer, but it feels like he's going to have to fight for it a little bit, maybe go to camp, kind of go earn it, that kind of thing. But he's an explosive receiver that can stretch the field, and it's,
Could you really have 3 receivers from the 2025 class from within the state?
Well, and it's just so scary because, we're talking about 2024 and what that looks like. 2025, you've got Elisha Thomas, C.J. Simon, Jaden Nickens,
right?
The 2 guys that were on campus from Texas, Grayson Harris and Dalen McCutcheon, who are both, rivals 100-level guys. And then and we haven't even brought up DeCorian Moore, maybe the number 1 wide receiver in the class, and he's big on Oklahoma. They're gonna have to. I don't know if you just take 15 receivers in the next 2 classes and call it good, or what you do there, but there is a lot of talent, and it's part of what George was talking about that isn't woke, where people are like, wow, we knew Emmett Jones was going to be a problem at Oklahoma, but he's a bigger problem than we thought he was going to be.
As far as, and real quick, just to kind of wrap this up, a guy that maybe, I don't know about it on Oklahoma radar yet, but I noticed that he picked up a Tennessee offer yesterday, was another product out of Wagner, Oklahoma, and Whit Edwards. Certainly an interesting body in the 2024 class.
I keep waiting for that to pick up. I check in with Whit every once in a while. I mean, he's another one of those guys, and I've it goes back to guys like Trace Ford, that I just kind of fall in love with early on. And I know, there were some that I think had him in like the 40s or 50s in the state. And I'm like, I don't like, and it's not like, oh, you're wrong. It's like, I may be missing something, but when I watch this kid, that dude should have, a dozen Power 5 offers. Like, he's 6'4.5", 205 pounds, incredibly violent as a defender, has the athleticism and feet to play tight end. I don't have a problem with him playing on either side of the ball. And he's one of those guys that I call, he's just a jumbo athlete because he could play a lot of different positions. He's got great length. He's got athleticism. And, again, for Tennessee to offer, you're like, that tells you something. I mean, that this guy is really good. And people are like, well, could Oklahoma really offer him and Cooper Alexander? And, and then obviously there's the, kind of the situation out in California where Devon Mitchell, who's picked up some forecasts and crystal balls to Oklahoma this weekend, there's the talk of him reclassifying in 2024.
I was going to ask because that got really murky on Saturday and Sunday.
I expect that to happen. Like that was the last he and I really talked about it. That was what I got. I mean, I don't want to say he came out and said it, but that was absolutely my expectation is he was going to reclassify to 2024. And he and Michael Hawkins are very close. They play on the same 7-on-7 team. I'm sure people saw some of the videos this weekend about, them putting up some big numbers over in Austin. And it was, there is a very real chance if he's 2024 that Oklahoma lands him and then may have to pass on 2 legitimate Power 5 prospects in their own state, one of which is an OU legacy. That's going to be an interesting juggling match because I know Brent Venables doesn't want to let 6'4", 6'5" guys that can play leave the state. I mean, there's not enough of those in Oklahoma to turn them away. But at the same time, Devon Mitchell's a future first-round tight end type talent. Like, and maybe those guys are too. I'm just saying, you've seen Devon Mitchell on bigger stages, and you really know what he can do and how special he is. And that there are some interesting decisions, and I think the nice thing for Oklahoma right now is, guys, we're talking about, they've got an abundance of choices at running back, wide receiver, tight end, and they're going to have to make some tough calls.
Right now, the tight end position isn't probably the easiest thing to talk about in Norman with Caden Helms and Jason Llewellyn out. We talked to Joe John Finley, on Tuesday, or on Monday, just as far as kind of what that position is. And it's Austin Stogner and then a walk-on that I'd literally never heard of. The Josh, I don't even know the guy's last name.
Finale. They also moved Hayden
Bray over to tight end. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's the line of questioning we had to go with Joe John when you don't have Caden.
It was mostly just all Stogner.
Yeah, it was basically how's Stog doing?
There weren't any Blake Smith questions, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean,
he has a blue jersey on.
He does have the blue jersey. Yes, he does. He does.
Not good.
He's banged up.
Not good. Not good at that position. Not a whole lot of options. There are a whole lot of options at dead Soxy, though. And especially during this time of the year, I got shorts on today. The weather's nice outside, low 70s here in Oklahoma City / Norman. So head over to Dead Soxy. Always a longtime sponsor. 25% off an entire order. Promo code SCOOP, SCOOP. Promo code SCOOP, Dead Soxy. They have everything that you would need from a footwear category. So I'm a big no-show guy. I know that, George, you've tried them out so far?
I'm wearing them. You're wearing them right now with my Jordan Lows on, and they're awesome. They fit perfectly. My brother has the Maker Bayfield ones. Loves those. They can go with just about anything. So
those are for the performance artists out there that dress up every day.
Yeah, he's a big.
We're not into that.
He's in the corporate world now, and so he has to wear nice socks to work. But yeah, they're the most comfortable socks I've owned.
DeadSoxy.com. Check them out. Promo code SCOOP.
That's 3 for 3.
Thank you. We somewhat got through it. Well, I guess all that there is left is Pro Day coming up on Thursday in Norman. We'll obviously be talking with maybe Brent Venables on Wednesday night after practice. We're really not sure so far as kind of what that's going to be.
And we don't know. I have a clue we know we'll get players and coaches.
Sure.
We don't know who at all.
Sure.
At this point.
Talked to Dylan Gabriel last week. I mean, I don't think that there's a whole lot to wrap up there. Just as far as we talked to him last Thursday. It was the night that it was raining. OU was in the indoor facility. But spring football is what it is. It's good to get out there. It's good to kind of see him mix it up a little bit. To sit here and make bold proclamations about what this 2024 season is going to be, or 2023 season rather, would probably be getting ahead of ourselves a little bit, but we'll see. I'm excited for the spring game coming up. It's going to be a big production. We'll have some stuff that I think that we'll probably be able to announce once that gets closer with some of the alumni that are coming back into town, and I think that that's going to be exciting. So, it'll be cool. It'll be cool to get back with everybody, mix it up with them, and we shall see. Pro Day, as far as there's really not a whole lot to get out of Pro Day. I'm going to be honest. I want to sit here and say that I have fun with it, but if you don't have like a big time skill position player, or if you don't have a quarterback, like Sam's was awesome, Kyler's was awesome, Baker's was awesome. Yep. To a certain extent, Landry Jones, and seeing him get chased around by George Whitfield was kind of fun. But I don't get a whole lot of Pro Day.
I don't. I guess it just matters who shows up and what they do.
Yeah.
Are they just showing up to show up and having meetings, or will they go through stuff?
Well, and there's a couple guys that, a Deshaun White, for example.
Yeah.
Could he have a Jordan Evans type day and get himself drafted? We didn't get to see Eric Gray or Braden Willis run the 40 at the combine. I would assume they'll run.
I don't know.
If they don't run at the combine, they typically run at Pro Day. So those sorts of things are what you'll be looking for. But like Anton Harrison, he had a great combine. Like, I don't expect him to do a whole lot. Maybe he'll go through
Say hi.
Yeah, maybe he'll do some O-line drills, things like that. Marvin Mims, I'm sure he'll go out there and catch some balls. But it's definitely not the same as previous years when you've got a guy that might be the number 1 overall pick, or at least is throwing the ball around. So it'll be interesting. It'll be fun. I like Pro Day. I don't mind it going over there.
Yeah.
Usually a lot of the players are hanging out.
I would assume that like
staff's
somebody like
hanging
an
out.
Anton Harrison's probably not doing a whole lot tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what.
I mean, who knows? Maybe he doesn't even come back. I really don't know. Most of the time, most of those guys are back in town just to hang out with their.
Well, and a
Absolutely.
lot of Pro Day is usually the team. Every team sends somebody in the NFL, and they come and they meet with all the players, and so that's what.
That's all it is.
It's a big meeting day too. They go out and meet places and stuff like that. So we'll see. I'm sure it won't. I don't think it'll be too eventful. But as soon as I say that, it'll be the most eventful Pro Day. Something crazy will happen. I don't know what that would be, but
What did Eric Gray not do?
he didn't run the 40.
He didn't run the 40.
That's right.
Because we
That's
had
why- that to
our
me is
competition, and we never.
Yeah, that's right.
We don't know
That's
who
right.
the winner is.
Carey had him running like a 6'3" or whatever it was.
Yeah. Willis too. Willis didn't run the 40 either, and I'm interested in his.
Josh, do you have any interest in the happenings of Pro Day tomorrow in Norman?
Oh, and sorry guys, I would have contributed a little bit more. I had a 5-year-old come home right in the middle of that whole discussion, so I was dealing with a wiggly tooth. A lot happening in my world.
We can pull that. Let's get it up on Facebook Live. We'll go ahead and pull that. Make sure that tell her that the Tooth Fairy is now dropping off $150 under the pillow these days. The
fairy will have to pay probably about $20, I would guess, on the first go around, because on my first child didn't have any other dollar bills around the house, so there was a very large payday for the very first tooth. That was not the plan. So everybody out there like, oh my God, Josh is spoiling his kids. That was a total accident, just the way it played. And I remember thinking at the time, oh God, I'm going to have to pay $40 in first teeth. So this is, I'm about to have my time of life.
And
But
the neighborhood parents are going to hate you. You just raised everything up.
That really works better for me, Bob. There's less talking in the front yard, like while I'm out doing, I'm mowing. I don't want to talk to you. Like, just leave me alone. I'm good here. So, but no, as far as, stuff I'm interested in, I mean, and I'm forgive me, I'm sure you guys probably brought this up, but for me, it's about the 40s for Braden and Eric. I want to see what they run. I think that is the difference, especially in Eric Gray's case. I could see a world where if Eric Gray could rip a low 4.5, where Eric Gray could sneak into the back of the second round. Like, I don't think he will, but I could see the case for that. If he goes and runs more like I think he will, probably 4.62, something like that. I mean, there's still value there, but I think you're talking about mid fourth round kind of. I hate that 10th of a second could mean that much, but it's just being a smaller back. He's got to bring. Most of those guys have to bring speed to the table, or just something very unique. And I think Eric's a really good player, but I don't know that he has a calling card that can kind of make up for his speed as, league average.
Yeah, and I'm just like, running back is such an interesting position in the NFL too, because and you could even say this about almost any position, but really running back, your success in the NFL sometimes largely depends on where you end up going. Like, if, for example, Kennedy Brooks, who I thought was, obviously really good in college, he ends up, where is he, with the Eagles now?
If he's still there, if he's still there.
He didn't even get drafted. Ends up on the Eagles.
Last I saw, he was on practice squad.
Yeah. But he ends up behind, 3 different guys and never gets a shot. Where, if Eric Gray gets drafted to, I don't know, the Bengals, who need a running back, because
I thought that they were getting Zeke. I thought that he floated. No, I don't think so. I think he was in Zeke's people flew. Yeah, they floated it out there, and then they asked Zach Taylor about it, and he was like, "That's the first time I've ever heard of it. I don't know what you're talking about." Basically, I think was the TLDR there.
I didn't see that, but I mean, like, it's all about opportunities, and I think if Eric gets an opportunity, he could be a nice player in the NFL. So. Same with Marvin Mims. Like, I think Marvin Mims could end up being a really good draft pick for a team. If he ends up going to the right place, he can end up being a real guy for a while.
We'll talk about it once it gets closer to the draft. But, with what Marv was able to do and what he ran up in Indianapolis, granted he has a good workout tomorrow. I imagine, like, he's one of those perfect fits of guys that it's almost kind of a good thing that he's not going to go super, super early. And maybe somebody will jump up and grab him, and then he fits into a role where he automatically steps into not necessarily having to be the guy, but he can be a guy.
On a winning team.
Sure. Right.
Because he won't be in the top 10 picks.
He kind of reminds me of oh, go ahead, Josh.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, I heard a comp for him the other day that I really liked. Emmanuel Sanders played for the Steelers forever, played with the Broncos, like, a whole thing. Like, he was something Bucky Brooks was like, I really like his game kind of next to a Marvin Mims type of guy. And I was like, I really like that. And I think it makes a lot of sense with Marvin as a player, that vertical stretch ability. But and I know we talked about this after the combine where there was all the, comments about his route tree and what does he run and that kind of stuff. And I think Marvin Mims is a much more refined receiver than a lot of people think he is, just because he has speed. I think people tend to think, that's his only way to win, and I don't think that at all. I've seen Marvin make tough contested catches. Now, he's dropped some at times, but you look at that Texas game in 21 where he was just making some unbelievable catches.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say, I don't know about style of play, but in terms of a guy that could land somewhere that can contribute. I remember, was it Tylan Wallace for Oklahoma State a few years ago that everybody thought he was going to be an early draft pick. He drops to like the middle rounds and ends up with the Ravens. And he hasn't done much because I think he ended up with a team that they just don't use a ton of receivers, which is interesting right now with Lamar Jackson. But that kind of a player where maybe he drops to the 4th round and you don't think much of it, but he ends up being a nice player in the league. So it's going to be interesting. And also, it's going to be interesting, too, to just see what Anton Harrison thinks. I mean, he's really jumped up some draft boards. I mean, he could be a first-round pick. I know there's some people out there that think he could be the first tackle taken.
I certainly haven't been keeping it up to date on it as probably as close to a lot of other people, but I would almost be surprised if he wasn't in the first round, or at least on the back end of that first round at some point.
Yeah, well, and there's just a lot of teams that, I mean, that's the NFL these days is you need tackles, you need offensive linemen, and he seems like a pretty consistent player there. So I wouldn't be shocked to see him go early in the first round either.
If you can get him in the second round, that's a steal. To me, that's unbelievable value. That's a guy the 30, they're starting the second night. I'm just running that pick up like as quick as I can because you shouldn't. I know. I was just kind of looking here. Jordan Reed's got him to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at pick 19. I think that's pretty good value. And you look at him, play opposite of Tristan Wirfs. I mean, that's a solid little combo. Now, unfortunately for him as a rookie, the opposing defenses are gonna throw everything at his side of the line of scrimmage because Wirfs is just an absolute monster. So, but that'll be, like I said, there's I don't see how you pass on a guy with that sort of size and knowing that as good as Anton's been, he can be better. There's still so much room for him to grow and be a better player and become more than he has been.
Is there a definitive tackle in this draft? Is it the kid from Ohio State that's the top?
I know a lot of people are really excited about him. I don't know. I don't know that he moves like one of those elite top 10 type tackles. The guy I love is the Darnell Wright kid from Tennessee. I think he ran something like 5.09 at 330 pounds at the combine. He's a freak athlete. And then, just to add in his size, he's played a ton of football. Reading he started 42 games at Tennessee. There is a ton to like about him. And of all the guys in that group, he's the one I like the most. I know that there's a lot of people that like the kid, like you mentioned from Ohio State. There's the kid from Northwestern, the Skoronski kid. A little bit short-armed for me. I worry a little bit about his reach. And then obviously there's Broderick Jones from Georgia, who's another good player, kind of like Wright and just kind of a physical freak. But I just don't think he's played as much football as Wright has. And I think with Wright, you look at the growth of that offense the last 2 years under Heupel, and that stuff gets a lot easier when you've got a guy that can set the edge against anybody.
Paris Johnson's the Ohio State kid that you're probably thinking of.
Yeah.
And then I guess the kid from North Dakota State, right? The mock kid that was kind of a Senior Bowl sensation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And
aesthetically, he looks the best out of all of them.
Oh, he is a outstanding player. There's a lot of thought that he is going to have to slide inside.
Sure.
And I think that hurts his value a little bit. Guys, the craziest thing, though, is that the Paris Johnson kid we're talking about, who's 6'6", 320 at Ohio State, and is the little guy of the Ohio State offensive lineman. The DeJuan Jones kid is he's bigger than Orlando Brown. He came in at 6'8", 374 at the combine. Holy crap. That's not at the rate we're going to get to a 400-pound offensive tackle that somehow can still move his feet. It feels like that shouldn't structurally be possible in the human body, but we're trending in that direction, and it's just wild to see. But I think it's a really good class of offensive linemen from pick 17 down. But I don't know that there's a lot of those. I don't think there's an Orlando Pace in this group that's going to be your left tackle for the next 15 years, and you don't even have to think about it.
Just a quick just search of offensive tackle. I guess power rankings going into the NFL draft. It seems like Anton is basically bumping between 3 and 4 for just about everybody.
I think that's fair.
I guess Wanya can slide into the back end. What were you going to say?
No, just real quickly is, guys, more and more we're seeing PJ's older brother mocked in the first.
Oh, yeah.
That's happening more and more now. So Adetimawa? I don't know how I say that. I'm not going to get that right, but that's why I call him PJ, because Adepoju is difficult for me as well. But it is again. I keep telling people, as freaky as his brother is, PJ has considerably more upside. That's what we're talking about when I'm that guy is so special. It's hard to put it into words.
Also, just a quick Google search of Marvin Mims NFL draft, and the first thing that pops up is some buzz with him and the Cowboys, which would be a lot of fun. Him and CD
side by side, catching balls from Dak. That wouldn't be too bad.
Hard pass. Marvin Mims is a good kid. He doesn't deserve that.
That's probably true. Although maybe they're headed in the right direction. Cutting Zeke was probably, I don't know. Maybe that wasn't even
too late. Probably.
Yeah, maybe that wasn't even a good sign. It was the fact that it took this long. It's probably not the best.
CD's about to get paid, though.
Example.
I think they're going to pay CD quite a
Wait,
bit.
the Cowboys let guys get really old that probably don't know what they're doing anymore hang around? That's really weird. I'm sure that doesn't come from the top down.
Are you suggesting the euthanization of Jerry Jones?
No, that sounds awfully deliberate, but if something were to accidentally happen, I don't think it'd be the worst thing that ever happened to the Cowboys.
Josh, I'm just extending the pod here, but what do you think of the rumors of Lamar maybe ending up in Indianapolis?
I'll take a quarter. Hey, we don't have to worry about offensive linemen nearly as much anymore. I mean, Lamar can, run away from all the pressure that destroyed Matt Ryan the last couple, or this year. I don't know. I've never been a huge Lamar guy as far as like an NFL guy, and I get it. Like there's plenty of evidence to say that's just stupid. I feel like we watched Cam Newton play that style of football and then fall apart as he got older. And I'm like, Lamar doesn't have that sort of frame. Like, how much time does he really have before all the hits he takes starts catching up? Like, it scares me. What scares me more is that I am slowly but surely talking myself into Anthony Richardson, and I
was just about to ask
hate
about
myself for
That
it.
sounds like, well, let me just give you an example. The last time that I sounded like somebody that was talking myself into something, I talked myself into thinking that Purdue was going to win the national championship in basketball. And about midway through that Farley Dickinson game, I contemplated jumping on the bridge over Scissortail Park and jumping. So that isn't usually the best thing, but
Don't
hey,
talk yourself into
try
it.
to get yourself there.
Yeah, it was because if we listened to like a podcast from like right before the combine, I was like, I'm not going to do this. I won't do this. And sure as the world, he's getting mocked more and more to Indianapolis. I'm like, well, I mean, it's a freaky talent, and we've seen this thing happen before, like once ever it's really happened. So I'm accepting what everybody else has had to deal with in the last 30 years of football, where you don't have quarterback play. Like, I just thought I was going to live the great life forever, and as soon as Andrew Luck got old, somehow we were just going to luck into a shitty season and get whoever his replacement might be. But now, I don't know. It's just, I feel like we're looking down the pipe of about 10 years of shit in Indianapolis.
Well,
On that note.
yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It is what it is. They sold themselves for at least you got one championship out of it.
Yes. Now, I did want to say one thing. I said earlier, this is my take back. I said earlier that Travis Wilson was at Frisco Reedy. He is actually at Frisco Lone Star that did produce Marvin Mims.
Garrett Rangel.
Small little note. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Very good.
DJ Graham, Heisman Trophy winner. You heard it from Josh.
At wide receiver.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No,
Well,
I don't like that move at all.
we'll wait until next week until we tell you who he's going to be catching balls from. We'll just start that controversy now at the quarterback position because I know there's so many people that want that out there. As I reported, Davis Bevel taking first team snaps, as I reported on the Crimson Corner. All right, well, we did it. We got through it. That's about an hour and a half of this week's Unofficial 40. We got Pro Day coming up on Thursday. Carey will rejoin us next week when we reconvene and get into Building 7. We should end it there now.